Hello, welcome back to more reading of The Ice Monster. Hopefully you'll be getting more regular updates as we are clearly now stuck inside more and more. We are up to chapter 9. If you remember previously, we were introduced to Elsie and she was sleeping in the Natural History Museum, and we were also introduced to Mr. Clout and to who else were we introduced to? Dotty, I believe. So we got to chapter 9, from which I will carry on from, if I can find it. Here we go. Chapter 9. The Devil's Work. Every morning, Elsie checked the newspapers for more news of the ice monster. Weeks passed until one day she heard the cloth cap sellers shouting from their stands. "Ice monster sailed down the Thames! Ice monster expected London today! Ice monster to be kept frozen in icy museum!" The girl's heart pounded with excitement. Up in the Arctic, the mammoth and the huge slab of icing which had been found had been packed into a wooden crate full of snow and loaded onto a whaling ship. It was then transported thousands of miles from the Arctic all the way down to the mouth of the Thames. You can see that. There's lots of sailing boats sailing down the Thames. From there it travelled upriver towards London and its ultimate destination, the Natural History Museum. The whaling ship was escorted along the Thames by a formation of gleaming new boats of British naval fleet, which broke up the ice to allow its safe passage. The ice monster was being given a huge welcome, as if it were a visiting king or queen. Thousands of Londoners lined the banks all along the river to capture a glimpse of the creature and to be part of this momentous occasion. Being little, Elsie was able to crawl under the grown-up's legs to scramble right to the front. There she could see the whaling ship and the huge coffin-like crate which the animal was packed. When the ships had passed, Elsie raced across London towards the museum. Living on the streets, the girl knew every nook and cranny of the city. She dashed along back streets, across gardens, down tunnels, over rooftops, and even jumped onto the back of a horse-drawn cab to get there before the monster. A line of policemen with linked arms formed a wall round the museum as Londoners surged forward to see the wooden box trundled by on a carriage pulled by 50 mighty horses. "Hurrah!" cheered the crowds. But one lone voice was shouting something different. It was an old man with a long beard, wearing a big sandwich board over his shoulders. The words, "The end is nigh," were blazoned across it. He held aloft a copy of the Bible and cried, "This is the devil's work. The prophecy has come true. The beast has come. The end is nigh." Elsie tugged on his coat. "It's not a beast, sir. It's a woolly mammoth." The old man gave her a whack on the head with his Bible. Thwack! "Wicked child!" Elsie pushed past him, helping herself to a lump of mouldy cheese from his pocket as she did so. The girl had just reached the gates of the museum when she was shoved back by a policeman. "Get back, you revolting urchin!" he bawled, and he shunted her aside. "Ouch!" she cried as she tumbled onto her back. "We don't want your sort here now. Clear off!" As the lowest of the low, Elsie was used to being turned away, but being strong in spirit, she was not going to take no for an answer. So she scrambled her way up the back of a gentleman's coat and trod on his top hat. Squish! Before he had a chance to cry out, she leapt off his top hat and onto the branch of a nearby tree. Twang! With her monkey feet, Elsie shimmied up the tree with ease and stood on the highest branch. From there she watched as 100 men rolled the crate off the back of the carriage. With thick ropes they heaved it up the stone steps. The huge wooden front doors of the museum had been taken off their hinges. The crowd fell silent as the men began pushing the crate through the doorway. Would it fit in the museum without taking the front of it off with it? A cheer went up as the crate just squeezed through. Hurrah! Soon mutterings passed across the crowd that a very important visitor would be coming to the museum today to witness the unveiling. "She's coming here? Oh, you know? Oh, my lord. Not her." "Yes, her. She ain't been seen in ages. She's so old now. This must be really something. I should have bought a new hat." Sure enough, Barely an hour had passed before the streets echoed with the sound of trumpets. As all heads turned to see a golden carriage trundling along the road. Ahead of the carriage, liveried soldiers on horseback flew trumpets to herald the arrival of the very important person seated in it, Queen Victoria. Chapter 10. Hullabaloo. This was a day that would go down in history, so it was only fitting that the most powerful person in the world should be there. Queen Victoria was not just the Queen of Great Britain and Ireland, but the monarch of a vast empire that spanned the globe. She had even adopted the title Empress of India, despite the fact she'd never actually been there. These were different ways. As the crowd realised that they were in presence of their queen, a woman who'd reigned over them for more than 60 years, they erupted in wild cheers, throwing their hats into the air. Hurrah! The golden carriage turned to the right to pass through the gate to the museum, and Elsie seized her chance. While the sky was black with hats, she leapt off the branch of a tree, whoosh, and landed on top of the Queen's carriage. Thud. With all the noise and commotion, no one seemed to notice this huge breach of security. Elsie lay down flat on the roof of the carriage so she wouldn't be seen. In 1899, anyone getting this close to Her Majesty without an invitation might very well pay the price with their life. The carriage sped into the grounds of the museum and came to a halt at the bottom of the stone steps. Elsie lifted her head a tiny bit and peeked over the side of the carriage. Thousands of faces were pushed up against the metal railings, open-mouthed, roaring their approval for their queen. Hurrah! The carriage wobbled slightly as Her Majesty stepped out. The Queen was old and frail and tottered up the stone steps, helped by a handsome Indian attendant in a turban. She was dressed from head to toe in black and wore a solemn look on her face. That was because she was in deep mourning for her husband, Prince Albert. Even though he had died nearly 40 years before, not wanting to disappoint the crowd, the Queen slowly turned around and gave them a polite wave. Hurrah! While all eyes were on the royal guest, Elsie slid off the roof and lowered herself down the side of the carriage. There she hid behind a wheel. The hullabaloo must have started the horses. See, I even do animal noises. As the carriage shunted backwards a little, Elsie thought she was going to be trampled to death by the horses' hooves, but the carriage driver cracked his whip and ordered, "Whoa!" Elsie let out a sigh of relief as the horses came to a juddering stop. The girl watched from her hiding place as the Queen was greeted with a bow by the director of the museum, the portly Sir Ray Lancaster, and led inside. The huge wooden doors were closed behind her. Thud. Now Elsie wasn't feeling too clever. All around her she could see the legs of policemen. How was she going to get inside that museum without anyone seeing her? She was desperate to do so, but Elsie had more chance of becoming the next Archbishop of Canterbury. As she pondered her next move on her hands and knees, the most unexpected thing happened. The carriage moved off, leaving the girl hiding behind nothing at all. She was concealed only by some air. Air is the worst thing to find yourself hiding behind. Other bad ones include a conker, a marble, a wasp, I hate wasps, a rabbit dropping, a pea, a flea, a speck of dust, an amoeba dropping, or the invisible man. Elsie was in deep, deep doo-doo. Chapter 11. Human Net. Ah! The crowd outside the Natural History Museum all laughed when the little urchin was revealed hiding behind the air. The policeman looked round in confusion. There! The crowd pointed at the girl, and eventually the policeman saw what was right under their noses. They formed a circle round this uninvited guest and began closing in on her. Having lived on the street, Elsie was no stranger to running away from the police, or the rozzers, as those who spent most of their time running away from the police called them. The policemen crouched down and stretched out their arms, sure that she would try to escape by running through their legs. "We've got you!" cried the chief of police, Commissioner Barker. He was a heavy man with a tiny postage stamp of a moustache stuck over his top lip. The circle was closing. The policemen linked arms to make themselves into a human net. There was no way out. Spotting the truncheons dangling from their belts, a daring thought crossed Elsie's mind. Just as the policemen were looming over her, she grabbed two of the truncheons with each hand, yanking them as hard as she could. This brought the policemen crashing down on one another, their heads knocked together. Bish bash bosh. Ew! Oof! Ah! Dazed and confused, the policeman tumbled backwards and collapsed on the ground. From above, the scene looked like a flower, with Elsie the centre and the policemen all splayed out petals. The brilliant move by the urchin instantly won over the crowd, and they cheered. Hurrah! No one wanted to see an army of policemen win against one little mite. However, there was no time to lap up the attention of the crowd. Elsie darted up the steps towards the entrance to the Natural History Museum. Another squad of policemen stood guard in front of their huge wooden doors. They drew their truncheons ready to give this little creature a ruddy good bashing. Not wanting to receive a bashing, be it a good or a bad one, neither sound appealing, Elsie slid down the handrail to one side of the building. To one side of the building entrance was a drain pipe. There was no time to think. What with her monkey feet, Elsie was soon halfway up it. Hurrah! Cheered the crowd once more. One bold policeman gave chase up the drain pipe, but not being blessed with monkey feet, he instantly slid backwards. Whiz! Ah! His bottom landed right on top of another policeman's face. Boing! Yeah! Complained the one whose nose was now stuck up the other's rear end. Needless to say, this perfect piece of slapstick was greeted by howls of laughter from the crowd. Ha ha ha! After her, you fools! Barked Barker. Right away, Commissioner, sir, said one. Form a ladder, ordered the Commissioner. How are we going to do that? Everything's at the bottom. That's very kind of you, sir. Barker fumed. His tiny moustache twitched. I am not a part of the ladder. I am in charge. Now the heaviest at the bottom, then the next heaviest, then the next, and so on and so forth. Policemen all started arguing among themselves. No one wanted to be at the bottom. I'm the lightest. No, I'm the lightest. You're the heaviest by far. I've lost weight. You still look fat. I've just got a round face. She's getting away, thundered Barker. The girl was nearing the top of the drain pipe. The Commissioner took charge of his human ladder quickly, ordering who went where. Soon the policemen were reluctantly climbing on top of one another. Needless to say, this amateur acrobatics act immediately came crashing to the ground. Oof! Ouch! Ah! Eeg! Ew! Someone's trodden on me bits. The crowd whooped and cheered at this brilliant piece of entertainment. Ah! By this time, Elsie had reached the roof of the museum. She took a moment to acknowledge her adoring audience and gave them a little bow. The crowd burst into wild applause. Yes, she's done it! Go, go, go! The little girl hurried over the sloping roofs to the far side of the building, her monkey feet gripping for lead. For a moment, looking over the rooftops of London, she felt immortal. However, when a tile slipped from under her, she suddenly felt distinctly mortal. Ker-chunk! The tile exploded onto the ground. Instantly, Elsie slammed down onto the roof. Thud! And began sliding down it at speed. Ah! The girl rolled over in a desperate attempt to grab onto the roof. Just as she was about to fly off, she managed to hook her fingers round the guttering. However, Elsie was going so fast she swung forward. Her fingers unhooked and she felt herself hurtling through the air. No! Chapter 12. Saber-toothed Teeth. Elsie flew forward and burst through a stained glass window. Shatter! She rolled down some stone steps before landing on top of a glass cabinet that housed the skeleton of a saber-toothed tiger. Thud! Elsie came down with such force that the sheet of glass on which she landed began to crack. Ka-chunk! Like a shaft of lightning splinting through the sky, the crack shot across the glass. In a split second, the glass panel at the top of the cabinet misted over as it became 1,000 tiny pieces. Elsie knew exactly what was going to happen next, but she was powerless to stop it. She gulped. The glass crumbled beneath her, and Elsie fell into the cabinet, landing on the back of the saber-toothed tiger. Crunch! Oof. There you go. Now the girl was trapped inside the glass cabinet, and with all the noise from the window smashing, she was sure to have drawn attention to herself. If only there was some way of breaking one of the glass walls, but they were inches thick. However hard she thumped with her fist, it just wouldn't break. Boof, boof, boof. Feeling that there was little chance of the saber-toothed tiger's skeleton missing it, she pulled out one of its saber-toothed teeth. With an almighty swing of her arm, she bashed the sharp end of the tooth against the glass. Bunk! Smash! It immediately splintered, and the tiny pieces of glass showered down like rain. Patter! Not needing the tooth anymore, Elsie stuck it back where she found it and patted the saber-toothed tiger skeleton in thanks. Good boy. The sound of bootsteps echoed along the corridor. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. It must be the museum's head of security, Mr. Clout. Elsie knew she had to make a run for it. Elsie knew she had to make a run for it. Having no shoes on her feet, she carefully stepped over the pieces of broken glass and charged off down the corridor. Staying close to the walls and keeping out of the light, something she had learned from the rats at the orphanage, she found a balcony overlooking the main hall. From the top of the floor of the museum, Elsie looked down on the historic scene. Chapter 13. A Sea of Old Men. Sitting on a grand chair that made her look even smaller than her actual size, and she already looked extremely small, was Queen Victoria. Gathered behind her was a sea of old men with white beards, spectacles, and stern expressions. They looked like learned men, scientists, explorers, and politicians. Mr. Clout circled the room like a hungry shark, ready to attack anyone who made a lunge for her. Commissioner Barker was doing the exact same thing. The pair kept bumping into each other. "Oof! Out of my way, you fool!" growled Barker. Masked by a red velvet curtain, something the size of a house was standing in front of the tiny Queen. A portly man stepped forward and addressed his gathering. He was the director of the Natural History Museum, Sir Ray Lancaster. "Your lord, your majesty, my lords, gentlemen," he began. "Speak up!" shouted Queen Victoria. Elsie put her hand over her mouth to stifle a giggle. She wouldn't have had Her Majesty down as a heckler. Poor Lancaster looked aghast, as you might if the most powerful person in the world was barracking you. The man tried to carry on as best he could. "Your Majesty, my lords, ladies and gentlemen," he began again, his voice cracking with nerves. "As director of the Natural History Museum, it is a huge honour to house what I'm sure you will all agree is the greatest find of the century. When a group of explorers set off across the Arctic—" "Get on with it!" shouted the Queen. Yes, of course, Your Majesty. I'm very sorry. I know you have an empire to run. Will you please do us all the honour of unveiling this creature dubbed the Ice Monster, which has been perfectly preserved in the ice for thousands of years?" With some difficulty, the Queen stood up. Her handsome attendant, Abdul Karim, went to help her. "I can do it, thank you very much, Monsieur," she snapped. "As you wish, Your Majesty," he purred. "Actually, can you help me?" she asked, looking a little wobbly. Abdul gracefully took her arm, and she shuffled over to the exhibit. "It gives one great pleasure," began the Queen, "to declare this woolly mammoth opened." With that, she tugged on the cord, and the velvet curtain slipped to the floor. Silence! There it was, in all its glory, housed in a huge glass tank, suspended in ice, the mammoth, perfectly preserved. Da, da, da. It was impossible to believe it had been dead for 10,000 years. To all appearances, it could have died yesterday. The creature looked like a cross between an elephant and a teddy bear. The tusks were long and curled, like the moustaches of many of the fusty old men gathered in the museum. Between the tusks hung a long, furry trunk. The mammoth's body was covered in coarse brown hair, with a thicker and darker tuft on its head like a wig. Its legs were as wide as tree trunks, leading down to 4 clumpy feet. Its eyes were open. They were small and black and shaped like tears. For Elsie, it was love at first sight. This was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Her heart soared and her mind began dancing with pictures. Here she was stroking the animal's fur. There she was riding on its back. Then she was being held by its long, furry trunk. Just as she was flying off into a land of make-believe, Elsie sensed someone standing right behind her. The girl was frozen in fear. She couldn't even turn her head to look round. Then she felt a hand come to rest on her shoulder. Elsie gasped for air to let out a cry. "Huh?" But she couldn't. A hand was covering her mouth. Chapter 14. Dead as dead can be. "Shush!" came the voice behind her. "Don't give yourself away." Elsie knew that voice. It was the only adult voice she ever remembered speaking to her in a tone of kindness. Dottie's. Elsie turned round and whispered, "Thank goodness it's you. Everyone but everyone is looking for you, young miss." Oh no, I'm not supposed to be here. You don't say, replied the cleaning lady. Truth be told, I'm not supposed to be either. Humble cleaner ain't allowed to be in the same room as her Queen of Majesty. Her Majesty the Queen? Dotty looked at the girl as if she were bonkers. That's what I said. But I couldn't resist being here. I love our Queen. Dotty gazed down proudly at the lady. Oh, that reminds me. I must buy a stamp. 2 stories below, the Queen was looking up at the frozen creature. Well, so this is the famous ice monster. Yes, ma'am, replied the director. It's a huge feat of engineering for the museum to keep the animal's body conserved like this. That pipe you can see hanging down from the ceiling blows cold air into the tank through that hatch to keep the ice it is packed in frozen. It's a bit small for a monster. Lancaster was once again blindsided by the lady. He spluttered. I can only apologise, Your Majesty, but this man is probably only a year or so old. It's a child, really. The Queen looked lost in thought for a moment. Have you got any bigger ones? Lancaster looked desperately round at the faces of the assembled, great and good for her help. But none came. No, afraid not, ma'am. Finding any prehistoric creature, let alone one in such perfect condition, is extremely rare. This is the find of the century. Excuse me, just got to let the dog out. My dear departed husband, Prince Albert would have liked it. Such a shame he isn't here with me. See this? Albert loved animals. I'm more of an opera fan myself, aren't I, Munchie? Her elegant companion smiled weakly. You have a unique singing voice, Your Majesty. His dry answer made the only old lady chuckle. The chuckle turned into a cough. A concerned Abdul steadied her. Thank you, Munchie. I don't know what I would do without you. Nor of me without you, Your Majesty. The unlikely pair shared a smile. Then the Queen looked back up at the mammoth. Does it do anything? She inquired. I'm sorry, so sorry. Your Majesty, what do you mean? Replied Lancaster. Sweat was now pouring off his brow. Like a trick? She asked with girlish excitement. The museum's director paused before he spoke, gathering his thoughts. Sadly not, Your Majesty. This creature's been dead for 10,000 years. So, as dead goes, I would say you can't get much deader. It's as dead can be. Oh, that is a shame. I suppose it is rather pretty, if you like that sort of thing. Which I do. Lancaster shuffled awkwardly. Do you have any other questions, Your Majesty? The Queen thought for a moment. When are we having tea and cake? I was dragged halfway across London to come here. These days I don't like to leave the palace too much. At my age it all becomes a bit of a bother. But my eyes lit up at a promise of tea and cake, you see, and I haven't seen so much as a scone. I meant, any questions about the mammoth, Your Majesty? The what? This creature here? No, replied the Queen with her customary bluntness. Shame it's dead already, came a deep voice from the shadows of the hall, or I would shoot it. All heads turned to see who had so rudely interrupted Her Majesty the Queen. Chapter 15. Extinction Business. Out of the darkness stepped a figure dressed in a pith helmet, knee-high lace-up boots and a khaki coat. A plume of grey cigar smoke followed it. Who the blazes is that? Demanded the Queen, struggling to see. Oh, no, stammered Lancaster. Who is it? Lady Buckshot, the big game hunter, Your Majesty, replied Lancaster. Oh, no, agreed the Queen. Disapproving murmurs echoed around the hall. What is she doing here? Pressed the Queen. Well, ma'am, replied the hunter, I shoot and kill every single stuffed animal in the museum. Such a shame the animals weren't armed. Well, they could have fired back, hissed the Queen to Abdul, just loud enough for Buckshot to hear. Ha ha, Abdul couldn't help but laugh. It's a shame this monster is here already dead, began Buckshot. It would have been my great pleasure to shoot it right between the eyes. Well, Lady Buckshot, spluttered Lancaster, the mammoth as a species has long since been extinct. I am in the extinction business, replied the hunter. I would wipe out every last creature on earth if I could. How delightful for you, said the Queen sarcastically. Now, where is this tea and cake? Lancaster leapt in. Tea and cakes will now be served in the gallery, if you would follow me. The Queen took Abdul's arm as she shuffled out of the hall. The Great and the Good all followed, which left Buckshot alone with the mammoth. From the top of the stairs, Elsie and Dotty watched as she marched right up to the front of the desk. There she mimed taking out a shotgun and loading it and firing it. She even provided a sound effect before miming the mammoth's brains splurging out. Ha ha ha, she chuckled to herself, before drifting back into the shadows. Now only Elsie and Dotty were left in the main hall. Oh, I'm trembling, chattered Elsie, holding onto the balcony rail. The evil stench of Buckshot cigar smoke had snaked all the way up there. Mate, oh, evil woman. She's always dragging in some poor tiger or lion she shot, with a wicked grin on her face. So, now she's gone, do we dare? Asked the girl. Dare what? Replied the lady. Do we dare go down and take a closer look? Dotty shook her head. Oh, Elsie, you'll get me in real deep doo-doo. It's just a very, very, very quick look. When a girl put it that way, it's hard to say no. A very quick look, said Dotty. A glance, really. A glimpse. Less than a glimpse, a peep. A peek? Exactly, replied Elsie. Dotty sighed heavily. All right then, let's have a peek at this mammoth. I think it's mammoth, corrected Elsie. Yes, mammoth, that's what I said. Elsie smiled and pulled the lady along by her sleeve. Dotty, come on. Right, one more chapter, chapter 16, Cheeks Ablaze. I am not sliding down a banister, protested Dotty. Which the fastest way down, replied Elsie. Dotty was right to be reluctant. It was an awfully long way from the topmost floor of the museum to the bottommost. In the meantime, we've been arguing we could already be at the bottom, reasoned Elsie. The girl clambered onto the banister. Dotty sighed and hitched up her skirt and joined her. This is an extremely bad idea, said the lady. It was too late. Osh, me bottom cheeks are ablaze, complained Dotty. Hold on, called out Elsie. Soon they ran out of banister. The girl landed on the floor. Dotty landed on top of her. Mesmerised, Elsie approached the ice monster. All that was separating the girl from a species that became extinct thousands of years ago were a few inches of glass and ice. Funny looking thing, muttered Dotty. I think it's beautiful, whispered the girl. It's like the biggest cuddly toy in the whole wide world. Dotty chuckled. I'm not sure it'd be all that cuddly if it was still alive. Now come on, we need to get out of here before Mr. Clout comes back. The girl stood still. Elsie! Elsie! The lady tugged at the little girl's arm. We need to go. I don't want to leave her here alone, replied Elsie. You what? Dotty couldn't believe what she was hearing. You look sad. You look sad if you've been dead for 10,000 years. Let me climb on your shoulders. You what? I need to take a closer look. Young lady, we need to get out of here now before her Queen of Majesty comes back. Quicker than a peek, implored Elsie. A peekaboo, I promise. No, now come on. With that, Dotty tried to drag the girl out of the hall. However, Elsie was far too quick for her. Before Dotty knew it, Elsie climbed up on her back. What the? Hold me ankles, she ordered. Elsie stood on the lady's shoulders as a reluctant Dotty dutifully held on to her. The girl was now at head height with the mammoth. She pressed her nose up against the cold glass and stared deep into one of its little black eyes. What are you doing up there? Called Dotty. Truth was, Elsie didn't exactly know what she was doing up there. All she did know was that she was transfixed. She didn't move. It was as if she were frozen solid. We need to go, implored Dotty. Still Elsie stared. Then the most magical thing happened. It was a moment that changed everything. A bead of water formed in the creature's eye. It's crying, called down Elsie. Oh my, you're imagining things now, young lady. That mammoth hadn't cried since long before even I was born. Now calm down. Not yet. What do you mean, not yet? Not yet means not yet. Down the corridor there was the sound of footsteps. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. Clout was on to them. We need to go, now, cried Dotty. With the girl still standing on her shoulders, she began running as fast as she could. Whoa! Exclaimed Elsie as she tried to stop wobbling. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. Who goes there? Clouch's shout echoed along the corridor. Elsie toppled over and slid down Dotty's back. Now she was riding her like a horse. Giddy up! Ordered the girl, as together they made their escape. Right, that's enough for today. Your next instalment will hopefully be with you tomorrow. Until next time, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much. Goodbye.